Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's video book club. I'm very excited to be here. I have a very special guest tonight. We're going to be talking about her debut novel, which is always great to have somebody who's first time out of the gate. And so I want to welcome Shaina Steinberg here to the video book club with Fresh Fiction. So to get started, because it's debut, so nobody's read your old works, although they may have watched your old works. Hint, hint, hint. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I started working in Hollywood when I was 24. I'd been living in New York. I got my master's degree from NYU, and my father had helped me get an internship out here, and I swore that I was going to hate LA, that I was going to come out here, prove that it was awful, and then go back to New York and do something there. And I ended up getting lucky. I found jobs. I started on Malcolm in the Middle as an intern. And then I went over from there to do 2 seasons on Everwood as an assistant. And from there, I went to Cold Case and then Bionic Woman and Spartacus. And then I was on Chase and wrote a couple episodes there. Yeah.
And according to your bio, you have spread out a little bit more. You've got a movie that's in post-production. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, it is an action comedy. It's called Bride Hard. The premise of it is it's Die Hard meets Bridesmaids. So a wedding gets taken over by hostages, and a secret CIA agent, who's played by Rebel Wilson, has to save the bride, save the wedding party, and stop the terrorists.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. And with Rebel in it, I'm sure it is definitely a comedy.
Yes, definitely a comedy. And yeah, I haven't seen it. It was shot during the writer's strike, so I'm really excited to know when it'll come out.
Okay, so you have no idea to know when it would come out yet.
No, TV is very much a writer's medium
Uh-huh.
where you pretty much at least fingers in the pie the whole time. Whereas movies, at least my experiences, they were like, thank you for the script, thank you for the revisions, we'll take it from here. So
Ah,
it's gonna be an adventure.
that will be an adventure. Yeah, that will be definitely an adventure.
Yeah.
Okay, so that explains how you did the TV shows and how you did a screen, but books are different. So how did you get into the book game?
I actually wrote my first novel when I was 23. I started it as a senior in college. And it was one of those books that you kind of have to get out of your system at 23. It
Mhm.
was awful, like unbelievably bad. For me, it was a really great experience, despite the fact that it was horrible. Um, I didn't know it was horrible when I was writing it. And so I had the experience of reaching out to literary agents and, trying to find a publisher, which I was not successful at. But mostly it taught me that I could be a person who sits down and writes every day and who has that motivation to keep going, even when I think most writers, especially when they start out, they're not successful right away. It definitely takes nights and weekends because most of us hold full-time jobs other than writing, at least when we're starting out. And so I think that it takes a lot of commitment. And for me, it was nice knowing that I had that I could say, okay, I wrote this novel. I know how to do it. I can do it again. Um, and so I continued to write novels throughout my career in Hollywood, less frequently than scripts because scripts go a lot faster. But this actually started as a script. It was something that I really, really loved. It was based on my grandmother. And when I finished the script, I kind of felt like I didn't incorporate everything I wanted to say, and so I decided to turn it into a book.
Okay, so you said that you wrote other books in between doing your real job, which is very, very regular. I mean, most that's what we hear from most authors is that they're not full-time authors, they have a regular job. But I think that you are the first person that we have had to talk to whose regular job was also writing in the medium. Okay. Sometimes we have lawyers because they apparently write briefs and shit like that, or advertising people who are writing copyright and things like that. And then they write their novel as something on the side. But you're writing entertainment in one medium, and then you're coming up with a book in the other. So that, I mean, I find that really fascinating. And but what was the thing that pushed you to go, oh, I'm going to try selling the book again to publishers? What made you decide to take that step?
So for me, this is a totally different book than the first one I wrote. But I do feel like working in TV, especially working in procedural crime shows, which I did a lot of, it is incredible for learning how to plot a story. It's so lucky. I've worked with so many incredibly talented people, and you get to sit with them in a room and talk about why one story beat doesn't work and why another one doesn't work and how to make them work, how to get the story interesting and ideally also reveal something about our characters. I firmly believe that it doesn't really matter the medium, that if you like the characters, you'll follow them anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's true. That's one of the reasons that every week when we talk about what we're reading, watching, and listening to, because we are full people and we like to get our entertainment in all the different areas. So, and that's true that we will follow characters. I mean, if Eve Dallas ever makes it to any kind of screen, I'm sure that there will be millions of us following her if there's millions of us reading her. Anyway, so for you, who is your favorite fictional character or fictional like detective type person?
I grew up reading Robert Parker, and I've
Mhm.
always loved him. I love his Spencer series. I love his, Jesse Stone series. I love his Sonny Randall series. But I have to say, most recently, last summer, I found Maisie Dobbs, and I fell in love. I read the entire 17 book series, I think, in 3 months. And I think she's incredible. And I think one of the things that I really love about Maisie Dobbs and Jacqueline Winsphere is she's so good at marrying the plot with character. So you
Mhm.
really care about Maisie and you really care about the people whose lives she's involved in. And I think because of that and getting so involved, her books are so readable for me.
Yeah, and it's really sad that she just finished her last book. It's coming out in the
Yeah,
series. Maybe she'll change her mind. Maybe she
exactly.
won't kill off somebody, or we have to hope about that. Okay. Now, I also like the part that you kind of based this book, or the book came about because of your grandmother.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things in my life that I've done because of my grandmother, because she's a very strong woman. And she had ideas up until she died. So, and tried things and tried new businesses up until she died at stage 90. So tell me a bit about your grandmother. What is it how did she inspire you?
My grandmother was, God, she was so smart and she was so funny. And she was very kind to me. And she inspired my love of reading and she inspired my love of storytelling. And we were very, very close before she died. But looking at her, she had always wanted to become a nurse, and her family told her that that was not an option. It was not something that women did. Women were expected to go and become a mother and a housewife. And don't get me wrong, like I admire stay-at-home moms so much. That is one of the hardest jobs. But it wasn't for my grandmother, it wasn't what she wanted. And yet she married my grandfather. And I do think they were in love, but they went on. She became the perfect corporate wife. She had 6 kids. And at the end of her life, all she would talk about is how much she wished she could have become a nurse. And, I think she did a lot of really incredible things with her life and she saw a lot of incredible places. But at the end of the day, looking at how much she regretted the path not taken, I always felt badly about that. And Evelyn is based on my grandmother, and it's almost like I don't think my grandmother would have ever become a spy, but giving her other options, and giving her a lot more freedom than my grandmother ever had.
So did you also give her some of the characteristics of your grandmother or ones that you imagined your grandmother did? Because I mean, Evelyn is not somebody to suffer fools gladly at
No,
all.
nor was my grandmother. She could
Yes.
be, again, she was very kind to me, but she could be cutting and she could be a gossip, but she was always very sarcastic and really funny. And she was just so sharp. Like she was so incredibly intelligent. And that is really part of what I admire so much about her.
Yeah. And reading it like the dialogue that you have with Evelyn and all of the characters is just amazing. And it's funny and it's great and it was great to read those parts of it. Also great to read were the martial arts things that Evelyn did. I'm sorry that she did. She knew how to do a fight and you spelled it out so that it was very easy to imagine.
Oh, thank you.
How did you train yourself or how did you research that?
I did not train. I think that in writing scripts, because I've written a couple action scripts, it's a fine art of being able to describe the action without getting too lost in it. I mean, you want your reader to be able to visualize what's happening, but I think that probably the fight that is happening in my head is probably a little bit different from the fight that's happening in your head.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay. So this is one of my favorite scenes, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away here. But when it's in the early part of the book when she's doing a flashback, and she's at the prisoner of war camp, and she plays around with the German officer. I'm sorry, but just the way that she did it, the whole thing, the way that you spelled it out was just lovely. I had to read it 2 times because I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you. That's very
And
kind.
if you knew me, you knew I don't usually go back and have to read things slowly. I like to speed through things. So why did you decide to set the book? I mean, it's sort of a dual time zone. We have different scenes in World War II, and then we have 1948. So what made you decide this is where you wanted to set the book?
I have this incredible love for old movies. I really love the dialogue that happens in them. I love that you have people like Myrna Loy and Katharine Hepburn and like, Grace Kelly, and they're all these incredibly strong women. And I love that. And I love the fact that because they are so strong, it makes the men in their lives have to rise up to meet them. So we get to see two incredible people who are equals, who enjoy bantering. And for me, I set it in Los Angeles because despite my thinking that I was going to hate it when I moved out here, it's been 21 years and I love it. I think that there's so much about Los Angeles that is incredible, and the art and the architecture and the fact that you can go downtown and there's so many places that were filmed in 1940s and 1950s that still exist and it almost feels like stepping back in time.
Okay. Do you think that the time period of like in the 1948 has a rich um like tapestry that you can pull things from? I mean, are you going to set other books there, or is this going to be a one-off, or is this the beginning of a series? Is what I'm trying to get to here.
It is the beginning of a series. My next book deals in part with the Berlin airlift, and Evelyn being pulled back into her own life. I think one of the things that I'm most interested in, because I got a master's degree from NYU, and what I studied was the way that war was represented in art and literature. And I think that to me, you look at Los Angeles and you look at a lot of America, and we were untouched in the way that most of Europe was by World War II. But we had so many people go to war and so many people not return from war that our society was scarred. It just wasn't necessarily scarred in ways that we could see on the surface, and especially you look at the economic boom of the 1950s, and it feels like we packed up everything that happened in the war and we put it on a shelf and moved forward. But that's not the case. I think individually there were a lot of people who were struggling. I think there were a lot of families who were struggling both with loss and with people who had come home different from the experience
Mhm.
of war. And so I'm really fascinated by how we as a society move forward past something that traumatizing.
Oh, that's interesting. And I kind of get the idea, or I kind of get the understanding that you made this a mystery, not just like a romance or you know, other kind of historical, because of your of what your background in doing all of the television shows that had, crime and stuff in them. Is that true?
It is. It's definitely partially true. For me, I also think it's really interesting to take characters and stretch them to their limits. I think that stumbling upon a murder scene, a person is going to react instinctively. I think that when you are in a fight, when your life is being threatened, when you're fighting for somebody you love, again, that brings you back to your core. It kind of strips away everything else about us. And so I'm really fascinated by the idea of being able to see who people are at their core at that moment of stress.
Well, I think that you did an excellent job, and it was really good. And I I quite enjoy it. Brought back to memories. It brought back memories of good World War II movies that have spies in them that I like, and also the whole sense of the late 1940s, 1950s Los Angeles. So I am excited to know that there's going to be more, and
Yes.
that's really good. That's really a cool thing. Okay, well, now what we do is we like to stump the author. So you don't have to be too afraid.
Okay.
But what you do have to do is answer the question off the top of your head. Don't think about it too long. Just go ahead and, uh, spit it right out. So we'll start off slow so that I can trick you into doing this. It's the first thing is that what is the childish thing that you still do as an adult?
I don't know if it's childish, but I like curling up in bed and reading books, like just kind of hiding from the world.
You don't pull the cover over your head and have a flashlight, do you?
I do not.
You
Yeah.
do? You have the cover
No.
over your head with the flashlight?
No,
Okay,
although
all
that
right.
sounds really nice to kind of hide away completely. No, I mean, my childhood, I'm an only child, so I was alone a lot. And so I did a lot of like reading on my own.
I'm just sitting here thinking, and I'm going, oh my God, that's me. I do actually, but now I have the light that's fastened to the headboard, but I like to pull the covers up over. And I just think it's because I don't want to disturb my husband or the dog, because the dog will wake up and decide she wants to go out for a walk at 3 a.m. It's like crazy shit. Um, who was your favorite talk show host growing up?
I wasn't really allowed to watch TV growing up. I could only watch the shows that my dad wanted to watch, which was like Airhawk and Knight Rider.
Oh, okay, with the talking cars, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you have any bad habit that has followed you from college?
Bad habit that has followed me from college. I mean, I still on occasion when I'm super stressed bite my nails.
Okay, that. Yeah, that works too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then this could be for a television, a book, a music, anything else. But what was your favorite one-hit wonder?
Wow, these are hard questions.
They're not
Um,
supposed to be too hard. They're just supposed to be fun.
I want to say Manfred Mann, Blinded by the Light.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. And because you are an expert at this, what are the three things that every hit man or hit woman needs?
Oh,
Mm,
I'd say water, a snack,
okay.
and warm clothes.
Warm clothes. Okay. Because, all right. Yeah. Okay. So now of all of your books, do you reread, and what is your most dog-eared book copy? Is a book that you like to go back to and read over and over again?
I love rereading books. I think that's just really fun to have a safe place to escape to. And my most dog-eared book is definitely Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, okay. Do you like
Yeah.
to watch the movies, or just you just like to read the book over and over again?
I like to read the book over and over again, and there's some really great adaptations. I just
Mhm.
rarely find myself with, 5 hours for the BBC one, or, you know, a spare 2 hours for the Keira Knightley one. But I think
Yeah.
they're great adaptations.
Yes, well, there is, Jane Austen, there's the Jane Austen Society. I'm sure you already know this. And we have meetings here in Dallas area every quarter, and they bring in a professor or somebody who teaches some esoteric thing out of Jane Austen, which you're like, oh, well, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I like the one where they did the secondary married couples, and
Mhm.
were they good or bad? It was fascinating, but that was really good. Okay, so what is the most memorable moment you have ever shared with a stranger that you never saw again? Ooh.
Oh, um, my mom and I sometimes had a complicated relationship, so every so often I would share a tidbit from that with a stranger who, airplane or wherever, and then I'd never see them again. And it kind of felt safe because I would never see them again.
Yeah, it is safe and it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, okay. So when you get a chance to read, what is your favorite genre to pick up and read?
Oh, it's not a genre, fiction, obviously. I don't have a favorite genre. I love almost everything so long as I can get involved with the characters. So, I mean, I just finished the fourth book in the Bridgerton series, but then I also just, not that it's fiction, but I also finished Salman Rushdie's new book.
Okay.
So I have a
Is there any genre that you will never ever read?
horror. I
That's
can't.
Yeah, that seems to be a very popular one that people want to avoid at all costs. Okay, who was your first book boyfriend?
Oh, my first book boyfriend. I think, and unfortunately I can't remember any names, but I loved the Babysitters Club growing up. So I'm gonna say
Oh,
someone from there because I am certain they had romances and I got sucked into
oh,
those.
they definitely did. 'Cause my daughter used to read those, and yes, they definitely did. Okay, so to keep you going, to keep you writing every day, and this will be for your day job as well as your we'll call this your nighttime job. What is your favorite writing fuel?
Coffee? I think just
And
coffee.
just okay, as do you have to have it a special way? Do you just drink it black? Do you just like cold, hot? It doesn't matter. It's caffeine, honey.
I I got really spoiled for my wedding, which was 5 years ago. We got an espresso machine. And so I like the little pods with the soy milk, and that is my go-to in the mornings.
Oh, okay, good. That's why I like watching Danish movies on Netflix, because whenever the person is called out, the first thing you do is she's stumbling even before she goes to the shower to put her pot in the Nespresso machine, and she's ready to go. And I love that. I was like, yes, we need one of those. Okay, so everybody has a different idea of what luxury is. What
Mhm.
is one luxury item that you cannot do without? It's
Mm.
luxury for you.
You know what it is? This is going to sound so strange, but really good, comfortable shoes like Birkenstock or Naote, that give me super support, and they're not cheap, but it's so worth it.
Yes. Yes, definitely. We're friends now. Okay. So this you only had one release, and how did you celebrate?
That is a
Or are you going to celebrate?
Um, that is a very complicated question because my mother died the day after my publication day.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so I think that when the second book comes out next year and the paperback edition comes out, I will really hopefully thoroughly be able to enjoy that one.
Okay. Well, do you have any plans? Do you have any, you
No,
know?
I did have a book event at Broman's in Pasadena, and it was great. A lot of my friends came out, and we ended
Mhm.
up getting a really good crowd of about 45, 50 people. And, it was just so much fun to get up and talk about my book in front of a lot of really welcoming, warm, wonderful people.
Okay. I'll tell you this. First time I had a client, I got a pair of diamond, no, not diamond, emerald earrings.
Mm. Oh,
And then
nice.
when I lost one of them, it's tragic. I'm just saying for the thing of it. So if you were a person to give or take the advice, what would be the advice that you would give to your younger self? So this would be advice you give to yourself, but 20 years ago, let's say.
I wish that I wish that I had known that it's better to be alone than with the wrong people.
Yeah, I think that that's true. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's a hard lesson to learn, isn't it? Yeah.
very hard. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now talking about people you don't necessarily want to be with, if you were unfortunately stuck on an elevator, who would you not want to be with?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious of like Hitler or
Yeah.
Eichmann. Yeah, I think that in today's day and age, I feel like I wouldn't want to be stuck with anyone who vocally and loudly and insistently wants to tell me about their political or religious views. I think that you can have really good conversations about those, but I
Yeah.
don't want somebody who's trying to convert me.
No, that's definitely not, you know, I would want to have somebody that could figure out how to get us out of the elevator. But
Yes.
that would be really, really, really nice. Okay. So this is because you don't have that many characters. Well, you do have a bunch of characters in your book. Who is one character, and it could be a side character, you would like to be friends with if you could make them alive?
I mean, definitely Evelyn. I love her.
Mhm.
I kind of want to be her when I grow up. I think she's fantastic. And, one of the great things about my second book is I got to explore Evelyn's relationships a little bit more. So we meet her friend Lily, who she rents her office space from. And then, after the adventures of the first book, she becomes friends with Colette. And so we get to see their friendship, which I think is a lot of fun.
Oh, this will be great. Okay. All right. Well, I want to kind of end this with how, because we are really would love to get more information about the upcoming book and other things that you're doing. So what is the best way for readers to stay in touch with you?
I am on Facebook and Instagram, and I have a website at ShainaSteinberg.com.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we're going to turn off the recording, but what I'd like you to do is stick around and answer questions. But I just want to say from bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here with us. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.